if you look at the stats, Nick Smith Jr. was worse at the Summer League than last year. Do you think he was?
No, I don't think he was better, though, I think is how I would hedge my answer. I think he was very, very similar production-wise, just eye test-wise, the way that you think he might fit into a Hornets rotation. I think it's probably about the same view as what I had at this time last year, or maybe even when he was like thrust into the rotation early in his rookie year. He probably is about the same player as he was at that point, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, but I don't think it's necessarily a good thing either, because you want to be developing, building along the way, which I don't think he has much that he's improved on other than his defensive activity. But I mean, we've talked about that a couple times, but it hasn't necessarily translated to like him being a ball stopper or getting like a ton of steals or deflections off the ball. Right now, like to me, he's still just a 3-point shooting specialist, which is fine in some aspects. But if you are expecting like a steal in the draft per se with the 27th pick, you're probably not going to get that if he doesn't make some substantial improvements from here. What were your thoughts on Nick Smith, James?
I think he played better. The stats won't tell it. He didn't shoot the ball well. But I think he played better on both sides of the ball. I felt there was better balance and purpose of play. I felt like for this team, especially with the injuries they had, he probably had to take a little bit more of a scoring load. Whereas as last year, it was a little bit more mixed with the guys like Bryce McGowan's on the team and things like that. I thought, like you talked about defensively, I thought he was actually much better, much better than last year. I felt like you felt him out on the court defensively. He was getting skinny over screens. He picked up a couple of blocks, like getting over and through screens, which I thought was good. Had a kind of a couple of good hustle plays and just generally brought intensity on that end of the court. And I think there's been effort there in the past, but I think there was much kind of like smarter defensive improvement. So defensively, I was impressed. Offensively, he took much better care of the ball this year. I think it was like 3.6 assists to 3.2 turnovers. Only just positive assist to turnover ratio. It was a negative last year. It was up over 4 turnovers per game. Again, he had like a higher usage this year, though, in my opinion. So I think that's actually like more impressive. I still have all the same concerns that I did have. You know, he struggles to get to the rim, 0.8 free throws per game for someone with his usage, and playing 27 minutes per game with the ball in the hand a lot is just not a lot. And the physicality, everything he does is like with zero physicality, or if the defense touches him, it just takes everything away. They had a couple of like nice left hand finishes at the rim, which is something I actually noticed, that he seems to prefer attacking the rim with his left hand layups. I think he had like 3 layups with his left, and I didn't think he had maybe any with his right that I counted. So that's something like interesting to keep an eye on. But like I said, like if he's going to be an inefficient offensive player, I mean, what was he? 32 field goal percentage, 31% from 3 turnovers per game. It's just not going to be an NBA player. He needs to be an efficient spark plug off the bench. But I now do feel the defense at least got to a point where if he can translate that to the NBA, at least defensively, I think he might be able to survive. Whereas like I wasn't sure of that last year. So I want to really credit him on that. I think he played a more balanced game. I think he approached it in the right way, but he has to find a way to score more efficiently. And until he does, probably not going to be an NBA rotation.
I agree. Right now, he just is somebody that needs to play in very specific lineups that have players around him that accentuate his weaknesses. And with his skill set and what he provides, like, it's just not something that teams are willing to do for a guy that's the 10th to 15th player off the bench, and a guy that was drafted late in the first round that's 6'2" and is a good shooter by all means. And I think he's a good finisher, like good ball handler, like decent enough passer for a combo guard. It's just that lack of physicality and like burst and explosion off the dribble really, really limits his ability to get to those shots without being draped by 1 or 2 defenders and making it exceedingly more difficult than it would have been otherwise. And Like it's just tough to live that way in the NBA these days. If you're small, you've got to have insane athleticism or be some extremely impactful player on and off the ball. And Nick just isn't quite there yet for either of those categories. But I do think he has the skill set and he does play hard. So it wouldn't be surprising to see him make these improvements. But the time is definitely ticking a little bit because if he doesn't show it at the beginning of his second season here, it's going to be rough to crack into the rotation as the team hopefully continues to get better down the line.
Yeah, I mean, everything like when he went to the rim was ending up in like these turnaround fadeaways, which quite a few of them went in.
They're so tough. They're so tough to live on.
But in
too.
the NBA, when you're like being guarded by Derrick Jones Jr. or like someone like that, like you just that space gets swallowed up so much quicker than it does in summer league. And like, how often do you see 6'2" guards going for like turnaround fadeaways from 15 foot out in the NBA? And you go, yeah, that's a good shot. Maybe he's the outlier, but he struggles to generate easy shots for himself because, like you say, he doesn't have that separation. A lot of it's contested. And if you're just relying on someone who can like hit open shots, which I think he can do, you can get those guys who can defend at a much higher level than he can just because like he is limited with his size and length. Like in transition, when he was in front of people just going at him. Like, and he was sometimes in good position, but when you're 6'3", built rail thin, there's just not much you can do to stop 6'6", 6'7" guys kind of barreling down who are athletic and strong to the rim. You just can't do anything. And that's always going to be an issue for him. So I think there was progress. I think if you just looked at the numbers, you'd go, "Oh my God, he was worse." I think that's a lie. I think he was like you say, at least on par. I actually think he played better. It's just the efficiency wasn't there, and he missed some shots. Like I logged a bunch of open threes where he could have quite easily, I think, shot high 30s, and that would probably have been a fair reflection of what type of shooter he is.